The lawyers who get ahead, the visionaries, are the forever learners.
If you are not at least dabbling and experimenting with AI today, you are going to be left behind.
You got to network. You have to hustle. You have to create opportunities, and that's to relationships with other people. You should be obsessed with networking.
Grab a pen, everybody, because these are the steps that you need to take.
The Earley Show will begin after a brief word from today's sponsor, Answering Legal. Visit answeringlegal.com to learn more about our 24/7 virtual receptionist team.
I would absolutely, without question, recommend Answering Legal to every law firm. Not one law firm, but every law firm out there. I've gotten so much business as a result of hiring them. I knew that we were getting a lot of calls after hours. So I needed a company to answer those phone calls live and to get the name, number, because that's key information. All my cases are called back. Answering Legal is the best.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of The Earley Show, sponsored by our friends over at Answering Legal. I'm your host, Chris Earley. I'm a personal injury lawyer in Boston. And as always in this podcast, I bring you the very best in the legal industry. And by the way, if you haven't already done so, be sure to check out my memoir, Scaling the Wall, on Amazon. All right. Today we have Michael McCready on the show. I asked him to come on because he's a very interesting guy. He's built up a very impressive practice, and he's really geeking out and way ahead of the curve on AI. So we're going to learn a lot today. So as always, make sure to sharpen those pencils. There'll be plenty of writer-downers on this episode of The Earley Show. Michael, thank you for coming on at work today.
Thanks so much. I'm doing great myself. How about you?
Very good. I'm excited to talk with you. You and I have met through John Fisher's mastermind, and we've had conversations, and you have demonstrated to me that you like teaching, right? You're a lawyer who likes to teach others.
Listen, Chris, it's not surprising that people like you and I cross paths because we run in the same circles. You know, we're constantly trying to learn and improve our practices and improve our lives and ourselves, all of that. So, you know, I'm never surprised at meeting a kindred soul in the groups that we both work in.
Well said. Well said. So, you've had a lot of success. You weren't an overnight success. It's taken a while, but you've scaled your firm. You have a big firm. How big is your firm right now?
We've got 125 team members now.
Spread throughout what states?
So we have offices in Chicago, Indianapolis, St. Louis. We're opening in Minneapolis. We have got about 30 international team members. And then we've got maybe 10 or 15 that work completely remote within the United States. So, you know, it's quite an enterprise to juggle all those things.
All right. So you had to start somewhere. Could you take us back, growing up, mom and dad, how they influenced, the man you are today? What was it like growing up? What did it look like?
Yeah, I've noticed a certain trend among trial lawyers, and at the end of the day, that's what I am. I don't try cases anymore. I was a trial lawyer, but I'm a better managing partner. But my heart and soul is in trying cases, and I have noticed, like myself, a lot of the best trial lawyers came from solidly blue collar backgrounds. My dad came to the United States from Ireland in his 20s. And worked in a factory his whole life. My mom was a school teacher. We had a pretty idyllic, growing up. But all that hard work and all that encouragement, back in our generation, you always wanted your children to do better than you, and I'm a perfect example of what my parents allowed me to be able to do. Supported me through college and law school, and I owe a lot to who I am from my upbringing.
Sounds like you witnessed a work ethic, right? Absorb the work ethic from them, right?
Yeah, and it's interesting is because I've hired a lot of young attorneys over the years, and some of them that have come on, It's interesting. They feel like, oh, I worked so hard. I went to college. I went to law school. I passed the bar. I've made it. Well, you know
Yeah.
what? Once you're a lawyer, then you start working hard.
Right.
Right? It's not that you make it to be a lawyer. That's when your life starts, and that's when the hard work really begins. And not everybody has that that realization when they become a lawyer. And I think that leads to a lot of discouragement and disillusionment with the practice. Is that once you become an attorney, that's when the hard work really begins. There is no shortcut to any of this.
100% agree. And that's when the learning happens, I feel like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the good stuff. So why did you go to law school? What brought you to law school?
Listen, I was always going to be a lawyer. When you're in grade school, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was that kid that says, when I grow up, I want to be a lawyer. Well, that's good, McCready, because you talk a lot and you always argue. And, I was that kid. And I had a single focus of becoming an attorney. I graduated college in 3 years just so I could get to law school. I turned 21 in law school,
Oh.
which was interesting because we had Friday afternoon happy hours at the law school, and I was underage and nobody knew it. And so when I turned 21, I said, "Hey, everybody, just wanted to let you know that now I'm legal." So it was a good laugh. But no, it's always been what I've wanted to do, and I did everything I could to get there as quickly as I could.
What'd you do after law school?
I clerked for a federal judge in Virginia. I had that privilege. He was appointed by LBJ in Virginia. He was 81, wore white linen suits from Memorial Day to Labor Day. He was quite a character. He was quite a character. So I did that for a year, and then I wanted to practice law in a big city. I looked up and down the East Coast. I looked at New York, Boston,
Mhm.
Philadelphia, DC. I went out to San Francisco and LA, and I just fell in love with the Midwest and Chicago. So I took the bar in Illinois, and I moved out to Chicago before I even had a job. This was in '93, and there was a hiring freeze. I couldn't even get an interview with the state's attorney or the public defender.
Wow.
Here I am, I did pretty well in law school. I clerked for a federal judge, and I didn't have a job. And I ended up working. There's networking is sometimes a negative word, but the more people that you meet, the more people you know. You never know what's going to come your way. And I ended up meeting a guy who had a very small practice in the south suburbs of Chicago, who offered me my first job, and that's where I started.
So you just dropped, a lot in that, but what you talked about was networking, and that's what you have to do. I'm gonna safely assume you've been a networking, machine to grow your firm to the size it is. Lawyers like, oh, you got to network, you have to hustle, you have to create opportunities, and that's to relationships, it's to other people. You should be obsessed with networking. So anyway, you found this lawyer. What kind of work were you doing?
So he had a small general practice. He was the first Spanish-speaking attorney in the south suburbs, and so all of his clientele spoke Spanish, and he was great with clients, and it was an important lesson for me.
Mm.
Is here I am, this young kid, and I'm book smart, and I think I'm hot stuff, but I didn't know how to deal with clients.
Mhm.
And I would watch this attorney, and you know I would be doing all the work in the background, right? I would be writing the briefs. I would be going to court. I was even starting to try the cases. But boy, the clients adored him, and it was an important lesson. I had to check my ego at the door, and then when I started my own firm, it's a lesson that's really stayed with me. Is that you could be the best lawyer in the world, okay? Same thing as the best doctor in the world, but who are the most successful? They're the ones with the best bedside manner. And being able to relate to your clients, and have that skill is as important, if not more important, than being a good lawyer.
I'm interested. How was he good with clients? What do you remember about that?
He just, he just had a way. He was, his parents and his upbringing, his parents were literally migrant farmers, and he grew up, picking tomatoes, and I don't mean that in a pejorative way. And a lot of the clientele in the area that we were, he could relate to them. He was one of them that had
Mhm.
risen above,
Right.
right? Oh, abogado, and there was a lot of respect there.
Oh, yeah. Doctor, right? Right? Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah, but he never forgot where he came from, and he just had a way of relating to people.
I like that.
Yeah, yeah, I try to teach my young attorneys is, you do not want people to walk up to you and after the first 2 sentences say, "Oh, you're a lawyer."
Right.
No, you don't want that. The biggest compliment someone could pay me is, "Wow, you're such a nice guy. I can't believe you're a lawyer."
Right. 100%. Yep. Meet them where they are, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so it sounds like started working, you're kind of humbled because like you, I was kind of arrogant, like, oh, I have a, BART card and hot shit. No, 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 I'm like at the bottom. And you were at the bottom too, starting, right? It's like you were
Mhm.
can only go up from that point. It was a somber realization that you have so much to learn. And then you met this guy at a good time who is imprinting on you, this is how you treat the clients. And that guy got on their level clearly. And that inculcated inside you, it sounds like. And that's the thing. I mean, I have a lawyer, we can learn from our team members so much. I have a lawyer, and he mentioned once, I heard him over talking to a client. He said to the client, "You're the boss. This is your case." And now, so I love that because, like, we're not the boss. Like, it's their case. They can make the decisions that they're going to make. We give advice and counsel. But when you have a mindset of service, Michael, it's like the clients are just like, wow, he is on my level. There's no like divide here, right? We're on the same page. So that's when you get buy-in from the client. So I love what you said. Now, before the call, you mentioned that you had an office with a shower. Tell us about that because I got to ask about that.
Yeah, so, no, I was at that small firm for 4 years or so. He made me partner. My name was on the door.
Nice.
But you know what? I was always going to start my own law firm.
Did he know
You
that?
Yeah, and he knew that. He
Okay.
knew that. I mean, it was just a matter of when, not
Yep.
if. At the time I was in a relationship. I wasn't married. I didn't have kids, but I was going down that path, and I thought to myself, if I'm ever going to do this, I should do this now before I have before I have any responsibility.
100%.
When you're married with kids, it's a lot harder to take that risk and go
Totally.
off your own.
I say it all the time to
And
lawyers. If you're young,
that's
now's your chance. You have a long time horizon to take chances.
That's
So
right. And
I'm with
so,
you.
my first office had a shower in it. And I thought to myself, if things don't go my way, I can always get rid of my apartment and I can move into my office. At least I have a shower. And fortunately, it never came to that. And everybody in the world had faith in me and knew I was going to succeed. But at the end of the day, it was still me taking that
Right.
risk.
It's so scary.
And even today, as much as my firm has grown,
Yeah.
it's still me that's sticking my neck out there.
Every
And
day.
things and if you fail, now if something goes the wrong way, it's going to impact a lot of people's lives.
Yeah.
It's not just me, not being able to afford rent in an apartment. Now the decisions that I make and where the firm goes can impact. Well, we just hired our 125th person, right?
Congratulations. That's really
Yeah,
impressive.
thanks. And each one of them, we support an entire family. The law firm
It's
does. So
amazing.
yeah, it's been a fun time.
I love that. That's amazing. So you obviously grew, from that shower office. When did you hire your first team member?
So you know, back then I had more time than money. And so I did everything myself, right? I didn't
Yes.
have a secretary. I had, and this is these are days before cell phones. So, I had a briefcase, I had an office, and I knocked on a lot of doors. I made an effort to meet a lot of attorneys, a lot of personal injury attorneys that I would say, "Hey, I'm a young attorney, and I'm looking to pick up some cases, and if there's cases that you don't want to handle," and that's how I started building my practice. I was very active in the community. My name got out there, and I would talk to everybody that called, and they would go on my mailing list. I would send them out a calendar magnet every Christmas, and it just sort of grew from there.
So, success leaves clues, right? For the lawyer, I was thinking about starting out. Could you share a couple? Because I've got a long list myself of things I messed up because I didn't know any better. I didn't know jack about being a lawyer, running a business of law. What were some things that, looking back, you wish you had a mulligan, you wish you could redo, that you would share with other
Yeah.
lawyers to help them avoid it?
Well, that's really easy because the same list is the list that I give to people who are just starting out. Okay. So if
Mm.
you're just starting your law firm, this is my advice. Your question is, what did you do wrong? It's the
Yeah.
same thing. When I'm
Yeah.
telling you about starting your office, these are the things that I did wrong. The very first thing I tell people is hire a bookkeeper to
Oh, yeah.
get your accounts set up
I'm
properly.
guilty. I was guilty of that for a long time.
My QuickBooks was a checkbook. I would
Same.
handwrite out checks,
Oh my
and then I would
gosh,
type them
same.
in. Balance a checkbook, dear God, I don't know how to. Yeah, so that went on for a long time,
Same.
and then I hired somebody. It literally took 3 years to unwind everything and get it set up. And I was I was probably a $1 million law firm at that point with
Yeah.
no books. Uh, now, now I can't live without my books.
100%.
It's
100%.
when they're accurate. I mean, you can forecast things, you can see trends. It's so transparent. It's amazing. So that's my big screw up was my books,
Same here.
right? And plug your ears, but I'm sure my escrow was not where it should have been. And that's the third rail. Never mess with the escrow.
No, you
Mess with
can't.
the escrow. Other things. Now my firm is all about culture. And it's
Love it.
something that has developed, and
Yep.
I don't think that I paid enough attention early on. It was all about getting the work done, bringing the clients in, getting the work done, and, everybody gets paid. And the sooner you start thinking about your office, even if it's just you and a secretary, especially if you've got, two, three, four, or a dozen people, conscientiously think about how to create that culture, because people work at a job and work for someone because they believe in it. They believe in the person, they believe in what they're doing and who they're doing it for. It's not just a matter of delivering the legal services. Now,
Right.
I wish I could bottle this up and sell it, right? Culture is just so amorphous.
Yeah.
I've read the books. You develop your own style and your own
Yeah.
culture,
Yeah.
but being conscientious of it, I wish I had done that sooner, because when you have everybody, and now we've got 125 people, when you have everybody aligned with what your vision is and what you do and why you do it and who you do it with, it's amazing. I've got the most amazing team of people that work together and love what they do. I've had people tell me that my firm is like a cult, right?
That's
How do
great.
you get?
That's great. Love
I,
it.
I take it as a compliment. And then the
100%.
other thing is
Big,
this:
big time.
cult is short for culture,
Yeah.
right? So,
I love that. I love that.
yeah. So that's my recommendation. Is I wish that I had, figured out to pay more attention to culture earlier on. And then the third thing is, you know, spend a lot of time and a lot of money hiring the right people.
Oh yeah.
In today's environment, you hire knee jerk. Hey, we need, we're drowning here. I need a paralegal. And oh, I've been a paralegal. And you hire them and you don't investigate properly.
I know. Guilty.
Um,
Very guilty.
and now we spend a tremendous amount of time um, on. Well, let me backtrack. Because my firm is at the size that it is, my chief marketing officer says, we are now a human resource and hiring company. We're constantly hiring, right?
Right.
And what he did a couple years ago is position my firm in its branding, in its social media, on our website to become a magnet where people want to work. When I started, I'd put a one ad out, small personal injury, aggressive, good environment, competitive pay, and who do you attract, right? And there were times that I have to do a blind box, right? Not even with my name on it because I couldn't get people to apply. Now with being very, very conscientiously putting ourselves out there, now we have people, knocking down the doors wanting to come to work for us. They see what kind of firm, what kind of company we are. And we've been able to attract much, much, much better talent and better people that fit in with our culture and grow our firm intentionally with the right people. So, whether you're hiring your first person or your 100th person, spend the time, spend the money. Okay. It takes money to hire. Don't short circuit. We do personality testing. We do disc profiles. We do sponsored ads on LinkedIn and Indeed and all of these. Think about how much money you spend to pick up one case. You're spending $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to get a case in the door,
Yep.
and you won't spend $500 to find somebody to hire.
That's a good point.
So spend the money. Spend the money.
So I had your same mistakes, bookkeeper, lack of culture. I'm going to add a couple. I didn't have a list and I didn't know my numbers. And so knowing your numbers is related to the bookkeeper, of course, but did you grow a list initially? You mentioned a calendar.
Yep.
I didn't do that for
Yep.
years.
Yes. I mean, my mailing list, everybody is on it. Everybody is
But
on
you
it.
started that early or no?
Very early on.
Yeah, I didn't do that. It took
That one is not a mistake. That one,
Yeah.
I kid you not. I still have clients that are calling me from 20, 25 years ago.
Well, you're staying
Uh,
in touch. You're
Staying in touch.
you're
Staying in
nurturing.
touch. So this is an important lesson. Is that one, and it goes back to ego. Is that once the client's case is over, they will not remember who you are.
100% agree. They'll forget
Okay.
you. Forever.
I've done jury trials, where I cried with my client, right? You just bond with them. And I'm not saying that they completely forgot about me, but life goes on. But for all those other clients, and I learned this lesson back when we had in-person intakes and we would have the client fill out a paper form, right? With all the
Yeah.
information, like at a doctor's office. One of the questions that I asked was, have you ever been in an accident before? And what I was looking for is to see if I could pick up another case, right? Is that, maybe they were in an accident 6 months ago.
Smart.
And so I didn't, so that was on the questionnaire. And if they checked yes, I was in an accident. When did it happen? Oh, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4 years ago. Well, who was your lawyer? I don't remember. No one remembers who their lawyer is, no matter how great you think you are. And I shouldn't. All right. So now, having learned that lesson, we have really intentionally tried to make it so clients remember who we are. First, in the whole client experience,
Yep.
a law firm is in the customer service business. Okay. Now, our services are legal services, but our clients are our customers. Now, most lawyers don't treat clients that way. Our model is much more like Amazon or Target or
Yeah.
Starbucks, because that's what people are accustomed to for customer service.
How they're measuring you. Yeah.
Exactly. And so we try to create a great client experience throughout the life cycle of the case. That helps in memory. But then we market to our clients, right? So they go on our mailing list and, we'll send out a birthday card. I shot a custom video. And it goes out automatically by email on their birthday, and it's just me wishing them a happy birthday. And another one that we send out, and these are all automatic. So, I mean, it's not somebody doing it every day, but I send out a video and it says, "Hey, remember us? We settled your case 1 year ago today." So we send out a video of an anniversary of settling their case. So just little things like that, and then we track where all our cases come from, and one of our big areas are past clients and current client referrals. So we really try to to get our name out there for clients to refer their friends and neighbors and relatives.
So when you were getting going, say, let's fast forward, you're 5 years in, 10 years in, did you find, and this is still in the 90s, right?
Mhm.
Okay. Did you find, when you're growing a business, you find some things work and most things don't. But when you find something that works, you sort of like lean into that. Was there any marketing you were doing at that time that you felt was effective for you to help you get more clients?
Well, yes. So Chicago is a huge market.
Mm.
But my office is on the south side of Chicago in an Irish Catholic neighborhood, and I'm Michael Patrick McCready. So it was the perfect place for me to hang up my shingle. But little did I realize how important that location was going to be for my law firm, is because listen, if you have a huge medical malpractice case, you're going to go to a downtown lawyer. But you know what? A lot of people don't want to go downtown. They
Yeah.
don't want to have to park. And now this is before phone and things like that. So my little neighborhood office, and we did great work. We got a lot of clients that way. And this is back in the days of the yellow pages.
Yeah.
And I'm really going to date myself. But city of Chicago, well, most major metropolitan areas had a phone book that was this thick, and the lawyers, were this. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody. And first it was a full page, and then it's a double page, and then and boy, to be a yellow pages salesman for lawyers, that was the. But we had there were also 12 neighborhood books in Chicago,
Yes. Smaller, right.
and smaller ones. And so I advertised in the small neighborhood book, and then I went into another neighborhood, and each year my rep would come in and say, "Oh, you got to do the big book." I said, "I don't want the big book. That's not where my clients are coming from."
Yep.
So one year he says, "We will give you all of the neighborhood books for free if you go into the big book." Oh, okay. Well, little did he know that I was putting tracking numbers in the yellow pages way back when. So a tracking number is a unique number that shows you how many phone calls you get.
Yeah.
And so when he came around a year later and I showed him, well, these are just the phone calls that I got in an entire year from the big book. He didn't have the audacity to ask me if I was going to renew.
Oh, wow.
So getting back to your question of marketing, it started with that small, neighborhood book. And then lo and behold comes the internet. And
Were you an early
Google.
adopter, or did you
Oh,
wait?
absolutely. And
Okay.
and Google, who prioritizes local searches. So I had a website very early on in my neighborhood, and even today, organically, within about 15 miles, even in as big of a city as Chicago is, within about a 15-mile radius, I'm in the top 3. I mean, I always have been. So that's going back to that Irish luck of setting up my office where I did.
I love that. So do you remember what year you first had a website?
Um, let's see. I celebrated my 25th anniversary of my firm last year, so it's 26 years. Um, I was in an office for 5 years. I didn't have a website then, but I would guess somewhere between 15 and 20 years,
Okay.
probably closer to 20. And once again, Google gives you a lot of juice for that. The longer your website is around, the better the algorithm works.
Yeah, we have a similar path where I hear you and listen to you. I started in Charlestown, a very, very Irish enclave of Boston. And I did the small neighborhood yellow pages, and I had, just, everyday folk, representing them. And then I went into Boston and I started, a website, which was grotesquely ugly. Like, it was like one page, but it was you're ahead of the curve. And so
Yes.
so we'll talk about AI because you're obviously an early adopter, but I want the audience to, take note that Michael is an early adopter of things, right? He doesn't wait for things to pass and, get perfect. Gets on the
Listen, Chris,
train.
this is a perfect segue. This is a perfect segue. It's going to tie in everything we just talked about.
Yeah, I love it.
Okay. So back in the day, lawyers said, I don't need a website. I've got a brochure. I've got my brochure. And then the first people to get websites were ahead of the curve. Then I don't need SEO. I've got a website. Everybody's going to find me. The people that got on the SEO bandwagon were way ahead of people.
Totally.
Then I don't need social media. Same thing. Well, now I'm hearing, oh, I don't trust AI, and I'm going to wait and see how AI plays out before I do it. Or what other excuse do you want to give? There are people like myself doing this now. And if you are not doing this now, you will be behind and you will never catch up.
He's already
I'm
behind.
not, I mean, it really is. I'm not doing that to frighten people,
I know.
but they should be. They should be, because if you are not at least dabbling and experimenting with AI today, you are going to be left behind.
All right. So
Firms like my own are going to be way ahead of you. You're never going to catch up.
No, 100%. So you, all right. So the lawyer says, all right, fine, McCready, I'll start. Like, what, you speak and teach this, right, to lawyers across the country, and you have really good content. I would encourage you, follow Michael on LinkedIn, follow him on social. He's always generously giving. So, and without looking for anything in return. I think that's another lesson here. You're not like a taker here. You're all about being humble, again, meeting clients halfway, serving people, creating good culture, creating jobs for people to crush it in, and you've been rewarded. Right? I think that's very admirable. All right. So the lawyer, all right, McCready, you got me. I'm going to start with AI. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Where should I start? What should I be starting with?
All right, Chris, I see you've got a pen in your right hand. Grab a pen, everybody, because these are the steps that you need to take. It really is this easy to get started. Okay. Go to OpenAI and get a $20 per month subscription to ChatGPT. Okay. Don't do the free one. Don't be cheap. It's $20 a month. Okay.
Which is crazy. But yeah,
it's only $20. Crazy. It's $20 a month. So sign up there. Then you're going to click an icon on the left that says Explore GPTs. It's going to open up a new screen. Then you're going to go over to the right to Settings. This is the absolute crucial point. Don't do anything in ChatGPT until you go to Settings, go to Data Protection, and then there's a little toggle on off. And that toggle says, make ChatGPT better for everyone. Turn that off.
Great
Okay.
idea.
So it's not just a great idea. You have to do it because of privacy and confidentiality.
I didn't know that was there, to be honest with you.
Yes. And so what that does is it now creates a closed environment for you to use ChatGPT. So nothing you put in is going out to help GPT learn, because that's what it's called, a large language model, an LLM, is it's constantly learning. So the more they start with a tremendous amount of data, trillions of data points at this point. And then everybody that's using it, it is learning by the responses that it gets. So it's similar. It's similar to Google. Is that when you do a Google search, if you click on the very first response, Google knows that it gave you a good response.
Right.
If you're clicking and clicking and clicking and you're not finding what you're looking for, Google is learning that that's not the best answer.
Right.
All right. So, well, let me just get back. You've got to turn off that data sharing.
Gotcha.
Okay. Then you can play around with ChatGPT. And here's the difference is that when we were in law school, we were taught how to do the Boolean search, right? Slip within 3 of fall and ice, whatever. And if you got really good at a Boolean search, you could find your cases.
Yeah.
And then came along Google, which is basically natural language. You just type in anything and Google gives you an answer. But the difference is Google will give you a website or a URL, which will contain, which it says will give you the answer that you're looking for. Okay. ChatGPT is different. So ChatGPT, and when I say ChatGPT, that's the one that I use. There's Gemini and all these others. I mean, there are Claude, Anthropic, but all these LLMs. But when you type a search into an LLM, what it's doing is it's reviewing all of the internet and it's giving you the answer based on lots of different sources. So, and the difference is if it doesn't give you exactly what you want,
Yeah.
then the chat part comes in is you re-ask the question or you narrow it down and the better your answer, the better responses that you give, the more likely it is to be able to give you what you're looking for. And then, of course, then the analysis comes in, is that ChatGPT can do just amazing analysis of huge amounts of data, something that Google isn't able to do. So, for example, this is really easy. Okay, ChatGPT. I'm a personal injury lawyer, and I post on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. Please give me a 30-day schedule of posting on each of these platforms with a mix of humorous tips and tricks and law practice or AI management, and give me a list of those topics. There you go, right? You can go even further is, write me a 250-word blog post on contributory negligence in Massachusetts. Now, so the questions and the things that you can get out of ChatGPT are limited only by your imagination. But this caveat, okay, it can give you all of this stuff, but do not post AI-generated material on your website.
Yep.
Okay, because Google will zap you for that. Google does not want AI-generated content. Now, for your newsletter that goes out by an email or for Facebook or any of that stuff, absolutely, you can use it. You can use it to create anything that you want.
That's great. So, I think we talked about this in Florida, but it's not Google. It's almost like a super powered assistant who gets to know McCready, because McCready's like, I don't like it that way. Like it, this way, or it's too silly, make it more serious, or it's too serious, make it more silly. And so I'm a LinkedIn maniac. I post already. I haven't really used it for that, but I'm not opposed that it's definitely there. You can curate incredible. I mean, I hate to say, imagine if this is available when we start our practices. I mean, you and I started these, processes from freaking scratch, tearing our hair out. I mean, the practitioner today, the new lawyer getting started, this is so freaking exciting. And
yes, I mean, you just mentioned. I mean, we have a separate GPT for all of our SOPs, standard operating procedures. So, we had, essentially a manual at one point, and, and everything that you needed was in that manual. But how could you find it?
Right.
Now we upload all of that into a GPT and you just ask it a question. So, for example, If a green card comes back for a certified letter, what do? And it pops out the answer without you having to look for it. And then we have our employee handbook in a GPT. Now, once again, the handbook has got an index, and if we wanted to know whether whether the firm whether it was a firm holiday for Juneteenth, you could find it. You could probably find the section for holidays, and it would say yes. It's a day off. Okay, but we can find it better with ChatGPT. But think about this: in ChatGPT, you can type in, "If I swear at my supervisor, will I be disciplined?"
Hmm.
Now, I can guarantee you that that phrase is not in my handbook. But ChatGPT will say, well, according to this section, proper office etiquette would not include swearing. According to this section, here is the gradual disciplinary process for infractions. And so swearing at your supervisor would likely result in, this discipline, right? So the Chat GPT draws that conclusion based on the information that you give it.
So old habits die hard. And so I find that sometimes like I got to think of this XYZ thing. Like, wait, I don't need to do all the thinking right now. I have a great new best friend who wants to help
Yep.
Earley scale his law firm, like on steroids, And so I'm getting better, Michael, in the habit. Oh no, I don't need to reinvent the wheel here. So I'm a very basic user. I will have, I have these custom GPTs. I think I learned this from you, operations, marketing, right? So this tool gets to know me, as I said, and like who I am, what I'm trying to do. And it's so freaking intuitive. It's almost mind boggling. Let me ask you a question. Have you had any pushback in your firm? Because sometimes the visionary is just like looking so far out that it's like, wait, chill, dude. Like we're going too hard. Have you had any pushback, or is it just like total buy-in from your team?
No, I wouldn't say pushback,
Yeah.
but I don't have people embracing it to the extent that I do.
Yeah.
It's been slow. We've rolled it out. Part of it has to do with change management. And this is a major change. And it's not just something you can shove down a whole firm's throat.
Yep.
It needs to be rolled out gradually. We have been very deliberate about how we have introduced different things to the firm. We're also trying to demonstrate and show to everybody in the firm how people are using it. For example, I've got a young attorney, or one of my attorneys is on trial right now, and the young attorney is second chairing. And there's this evidence, it has to do with a bus, and he wants to admit the bus schedule or the route. And he sat there in court with ChatGPT and said, "I'm on trial. I want to introduce the bus route." It asked a couple other questions. The bus is a public company, and then and it's a public record, and gave him the whole foundation.
Wow.
All right there. And he showed it to me. I said, "Don't show it to me. You show it to all the attorneys." Right? Is that you have to be aware that this stuff is there, and encourage them to use it. I mean, that was a perfect example.
Yeah.
Now, with the caveat, I had to tell my whole attorney team this is great, okay? But if there were cases in there, even if you're on trial, you need to make sure that those are legitimate cases. So I'd mentioned earlier these lawyers that say, "Oh, I'm not ready for AI. It's not." No. That's wrong, okay? AI is a tool. It should not be relied on 100%. And so you hear about these law firms that have gotten sanctioned for AI generated briefs. And you know what? They deserve to be.
Yeah.
Okay. They did not represent their client ethically. They didn't check their work. That's absolutely absurd. If you're working in a big firm and a partner gives an associate, a brief, of course that partner is going to review the brief. So AI is a tool, and it will get you 75, 85, 95% of the way there. But generally speaking, it is not a finished product.
I think we talked about this in Florida that you should have a policy, the practitioner should have a policy in place that inoculates against maybe a rogue attorney that still goes off the reservation and doesn't comply with the policy, right? Because that's something that, we're humans and people do things
Yep.
that we don't always expect. How can the practitioner inoculate he or herself from that rogue, kind of attorney who doesn't, puts the firm in jeopardy?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, whether it's AI or any other shortcut or
Yeah.
any other ethical lapse, I mean, it starts at the top.
Yeah.
One of our firm values is integrity, right? It's our firm value. We always do the right thing. Given a choice between two different choices, we always do what's best for the client
Always.
in an ethical manner, and
Always.
and maintains our reputation, our vision. We have a tremendous reputation among our colleagues and our peers, among defense counsel, insurance companies, doctors. That is the bedrock of the firm. And so, we want to make sure that we hire people that conform with our, well, not conform, but understand our values and live by them. And somebody that does something against a policy, for example, using AI without checking it, that's against what we stand for.
Yes.
And the firm would certainly take action.
You just said something that I subscribe to definitely is what's best for the client. So when the attorney knocks on your door, hey, Michael, what should I do about this case? I always, first of all, like to put it back on the person. As a secretary, trial lawyer is like, what do you think we should do? Reduce his dependency on Earley. But, I always, that's the prism, like looking through what's best for the client, right? That's what that's completely free and it never fails. I encourage the practitioner, you have to always do that because anything contrary to that is just recipe for disaster. You're putting yourself first. AI, I definitely encourage you, follow Michael. He's in the forefront of AI. Can I just go back in time a little bit? You're scaling, I'm curious, generally curious, selfishly. You're scaling up your firm. When did you hire the integrator? Or even if it was a loosely, termed integrator, when did you get like a second in command as you're going up?
Yeah, no, listen, I've read all the EOS books, Gino Wickman and Fireproof and Mike Morse. I know all them, and John Knockhazel, brilliant. And I know a lot of PI attorneys that subscribe to EOS and it works really well. I don't use EOS. I have adapted certain things. My firm is successful because of all the things I've learned from other people.
Sure.
And I have synthesized them into the McCready way.
Yeah.
And somebody couldn't just copy with what I've done because it wouldn't work for them.
Sure.
There's a process they need to go through. But I do have a firm administrator. She's been with me for 6 years.
Great.
When she started, I want to say we were maybe 20 employees.
6 years ago?
6 years ago, yeah.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, we've had some pretty explosive growth over the last couple of years.
I gotta ask about that, man. Why? Why?
Well, part of it is the firm's reputation in terms of how we handle cases. We are not mass market advertisers, so I don't do buses or billboards or anything like that. But a lot of these mass market advertisers refer their cases to me.
Okay.
And then with me gaining much more of a national presence and speaking a lot and meeting a lot of people and networking, I am the go-to referral source in Chicago, Indianapolis, St. Louis. And so if somebody in Boston, has a case in Indianapolis, you might put it on a listserv or, my name pops up a lot. And so the other thing is that, when I'm trying to start working with a new referral source, I show them this is how we do it. And this is why we get the best results for our clients. Too many lawyers spend too much time getting cases and forget about delivering the legal services.
Yeah.
I don't care how many cases that you have, you need to maximize the value on all of those,
For
on
sure.
every single one of them.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's, that's how it's grown. We've picked up, newer partners. In Arizona, they now have the ABS, Alternative Business Structure. There's a lot of money pumping in there, and they need law firms to handle the cases. Well, let me raise my hand. I'm here. So that's kind of where the, and then word travels.
So if I'm hearing you correctly and accurately, you had been working so freaking hard, right? And growing, but sometimes I call it like chipping the dam, right? You're chipping, you're chipping, you're chipping, you're chipping. And then whether this is, 2018, 2019, you hired this administrator, and then it's like the chipping got bigger, more water came out, right? It sounds like is that accurate at all?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And with it comes new challenges.
Yeah.
I also have an absolutely stellar team that I work with. I've surrounded myself with superstars,
You have to.
and I
That's the
give
key.
them a lot of autonomy, and a lot of support. They've all grown in their positions, and health. They have all helped me grow as well. When you surround yourself with really smart, motivated people, it raises everybody's performance, including my own. So
100%.
let's say, 6 years ago, I was making a very comfortable living. But then I started hiring. Yeah, I had some people there already, but I couldn't just sit around. They made me, step it up a gear. And in the last 2 years, my CMO, he has really encouraged me to get more and more involved. And he's right. And
Involved
look
in
at all
what?
these. Yeah. I just speaking and teaching and
Yep.
getting my name out there, and getting introduced to different people that can help the firm. It's not me out there selling. I'm not selling anything. I'm just being myself and sharing, and by giving, it's allowing me to receive.
Yeah, you have to get out there. I went last night to Boston University Law School. They asked me to just have a table. It's like a networking night for the students. Not a massive turnout. I didn't really talk to a lot of people, but I know something's going to come from that. Like when you plant these seeds, you have to go out of the office and get away from your computer and shake hands and give value to people. And whether you're speaking in front of a few hundred people or 5 people, like you have to get out there, because I'm assuming you believe this compounding factor, this compounding effect is real. And so, you're sort of like a, 30-year overnight success, right? You started with nothing, right? Except nerve and guts. If you have that, you're way ahead of the average bear, and you make those bets on yourself, you're going to win. I encourage the attorney, be bold, be brave. There's so much opportunity,
But it's one step at a time.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I've had my firm for 25 years. I work with some tech companies. Smart Advocate. It runs my firm. We work with Even Up for our demand letters. Okay, but you can't all of a sudden expect that your firm is going to be McCready. It's an ongoing process. We're still constantly improving.
Oh, sure.
Among my firm, I tell my whole team, I said, our competition is not other plaintiffs' law firms. Okay. We are already better than most of them out there. Our competition is ourselves. We always want to improve. We always want to do better. And by doing better, guess what? We're helping the client. So whatever processes we can improve, and new technology we can adopt, all of these things, really go into the ultimate goal, which is getting the best result for the client.
I love that. What's your greatest challenge right now at this level of scale?
It's certainly hiring. Just we've got a lot of cases, and hiring on.
Good.
Yeah, it's very, one of my attorneys calls it's a first world problem, right? We have too many
100%,
cases.
definitely.
But it's difficult to maintain the level of of client and customer service that we want when the case volume goes up, and being able, I mean, we just what is today? Thursday. Monday, we onboarded 10 new people, all at once. Positions.
That's great. I love it.
So so those are different kinds of challenges.
Right. Right. That's wonderful. And I know you're, I say this in a positive way, you're a geek like me at this stuff. You love learning.
Yes, yeah.
You're a forever learner. The lawyers who get ahead, the visionaries, are the forever learners. Is there one book in particular that's had the most profound impact on your life? Either, your business, your personal life, just one book that kind of just resonated with you the most.
Yeah. I've read a lot of the business books, and these days, I've stopped reading the whole book because
Yeah,
it's
I know.
usually just
Same.
one idea that's just fluff. And
Same.
so there's a great app called Blinkist, which summarizes books in
What's that
about
called
10
again?
minutes. Blinkist.
Right.
It's on Apple Store. I think it's $99 a year, and you can read any book in 10 minutes, and it will really distill what you
That's
need.
cool. I like it.
But my favorite is actually one called The Lean Law Firm, Lean, and it's all based on the Japanese model of building cars.
Kaizen.
Exactly.
Yes.
And just in time delivery and identifying internal constraints and external constraints, and with the idea that your client and the client's case, when from the minute it starts to the minute you disperse, what can you do to improve the processes? What can you do to speed up the time? There are certain things that you have no control over, right? You have no control over how long the sheriff goes to serve the person.
Yeah.
But you do have control over how long it takes for you to get discovery out. All right. And so if you can look at where your pinch points are and, and analyze every single step and what can you do to make things more efficient? I'm all about technology and automation. And so if it's A, B, C, and D, what can we do? Get rid of B and C, right? Let's just go from A to D.
Yes.
And that's what I learned from that particular book. It's a small book.
I love that book. No one talks
Yeah.
about that book. I found
Nobody
it
does.
in the
Yeah.
pandemic. That really, I can't agree more with you on that. Hope everyone buys it. Amazon today, The Lean Law Firm. Super good book. It was, nobody talks about it. I don't understand, except me and you.
Yeah, no, you're right, Chris. I'm the same way, and that's why I mentioned it.
Yeah, totally. Yes.
It's one of my favorites.
It's a good one. All right, let me ask you this as we wrap up. What's your greatest success in life so far?
So I have a whole PowerPoint that it's called How to Manage a Successful Law Firm. Okay. And the first point is you have to define what is success to you, right? So success may be a lot of money. Success may be, times. So define success. Next, you need to understand that the law firm is a business and run it like a business. Then the final point is then you can manage, right? Until you define what your success is and have your business structured, you can't manage. But to me, my definition of success has always been to make enough money that that I can do things that I want to do without necessarily having to worry about it financially. Now, when I say that, I'm a pretty frugal guy, right? I don't mean that by, I want to go out and buy a jet. It's not like that. I have 6 kids who are mostly grown, and being able to take them to Disney World, for example, that's a lot of money, right? People save up a lot for kids. And I mean, so working to have enough money to be able to, do things like that with my kids, but also still be able to be there for soccer games. And
that's what it's all about.
That was, it was very deliberate. I've built my whole career, based on my time is very valuable. I do need money to be able to do the things I want to do, but to balance it pretty nicely.
I love it. Well said. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, if you Google McCready Law, I better be coming up first. If you look for personal injury lawyer in Chicago or AI or any of that stuff, I hope I'm coming up first. But no, I don't have one of those tricky emails. It's michael@McCreadyLaw.com. And I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn. I come up with this stuff, and when I come up with a new idea, I love to post it and just say, hey, I was doing this today, and always happy to share.
I love it. Hey, this is a really good conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. It means a lot. So
it's my pleasure. My pleasure.
That's it for this episode of The Earley Show. Be sure to check out more episodes of our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, the Answering Legal YouTube channel.